My name is Brian Shivler, and my wife Kate and I started coming to Orchard Hill nearly 20 years ago at the chapel. I've been blessed with the opportunity to be in a lot of leadership roles in my life, and I think that culture drives us toward kind of living for self. I mean, let's face it, we live in an affluent part of the world. We live in an affluent part of the United States of America, and if you're in this auditorium, you're blessed by the world's standards. And I think we all have to ask ourselves, why? And why has God blessed us? And for me, it took me a while to get to the point where I recognized that it wasn't all for me. I mean, I've been blessed financially. I got to have a lot of things that a lot of people will never have. And it took me a while, honestly, to realize that stuff and the accumulation of more and more of it wasn't going to do it. And that there had to be more than that for this world to have true meaning. You know, I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day that doesn't believe that there's a God. And after I left him at lunch, it was really disheartening for me because I thought to myself, he's such a great guy, and what then is he living for? And I think the realization that this life, our time here on earth, is really just a flash in the pan compared to eternity, really makes a difference in the way that you want to live your life. You start to ask questions like, if I have a limited amount of time here, God has placed me here. What's the reason for that? And how can I be one of his instruments to actually make change in the world on a grand scheme? On a much larger scale than myself or ourselves. You know, for me, one of the biggest challenges was moving from a place where I thought being a Christian was being in church on Sundays to realizing that that was only a teeny tiny part of it. And when I started to recognize that making Jesus the Lord of my life meant that it was a notion that had to follow me through my relationships with my wife and my children, my friends. It followed me at work. And when you're asking yourself in our culture today, on a consistent basis with the decisions you have to make, what would God think of this decision, and how can I honor him with my decisions, my thoughts, my actions? Everything changes. And you start to recognize that we live in a tide that is abruptly moving away from who God wants us to be. And you have to make a stance. At some point in the game, we all have to decide who we are going to be. And, you know, on your final day, will you be able to kneel down before God knowing that you did what you could to better this world by reflecting him to those that we've been blessed to be around? You know, if I just had one word of encouragement to someone here that might be searching for answers, looking for the truth, asking themselves the question, who is God and what am I doing here? My encouragement would be to find an answer. Look until you find the right answers. There are so many resources around you. Questions are good. God's not afraid of questions. In fact, asking difficult questions builds a stronger faith. Because I think in the end, we all want to know, what is it that we're doing here? What's our purpose for being here on earth?